Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. I've just finished watching Andor. It's a pretty deep show, so yeah, let's talk about it. It covers a lot of political topics, doesn't it? And did we all understand what was going on here? I'll be running a test at the end, so listen carefully. I think I understood it. It's one of those shows where there's a lot going on. You think that there's some people possibly double crossing each other. And every time someone spoke, I was wondering, are they who they say they are? I didn't really want to, think the worst of people. I just wanted not a more simple story, but something that is pretty much more understandable the first time you watch it. Because I feel now that I need to see it twice to fully understand everything. Now, I do occasionally go into a couple of forums. I've got some groups with some friends of mine that are very big into films. A lot of people seem to have been left behind by this show. I can see they've possibly got a point, but there's so much about Andor that is great. We do go into a lot of politics and, like I said, double-crossing motives here. I think it's probably very reminiscent of the prequels, where there was a lot of politics going on, and then, as I said in earlier reviews of Star Wars films, I did revisit the prequels around the time, I think it was The Last Jedi, and it was just after The Force Awakens. I think it was just when The Last Jedi was released. Here in the UK, Sky TV were doing the Star Wars Marathon, and they would show all the previous Star Wars films leading up to the release of the sequel film, whatever it was at the time. In my case, it was The Last Jedi. And I did actually sit down and watch The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones from start to finish properly. Attack of the Clones in particular, there's a lot, politically speaking. You've got the unmistakable parallels to Hitler's Third Reich motives and his rise to political power. If anyone's that studied World War II will see certain similarities. I think George Lucas was just trying to copy, in effect. Looking back on Attack of the Clones, and in some cases The Phantom Menace as well, they're actually pretty decent movies, aren't they? Once you step back from the initial shock of how digital they are and comedic in places in the case of Phantom Menace, they're pretty good once you revisit them properly. And I feel that with Andor, I think you need to revisit it, and probably step back. Now that we've seen the whole series, or at least I hope you have, I would recommend seeing all the episodes just so you don't get left behind. And I think there is a lot to take in here. And also, deliberately, a lot of things left untold. We understand that there's a series 2. We do need to flesh this story out, because original trilogy advocates like me, this story is a big part of that original Star Wars story that we all come to love. I mean, this is Star Wars. I mean, forget everything else, forget the Jedis and the Sith. The whole point of Star Wars was the uprising against the Empire, the big corporation, how the small man can overcome greater odds. So we get the motives of Mon Mothma, who's pretty much the leader or underground leader at this point. She's trying to put money together desperately, and there's various ways she's trying to do that. And also her driver in the last episode here wasn't her driver being set up. She possibly knew that he's going to double cross her, so she planted some MacGuffin information, and she's trying to throw any spies off the scent by deflecting that it's to set up a rebellion. And that's the overall theme of this show. I don't think we're really supposed to quite understand everything at this point. It is complicated, and I did listen. I did try to switch my brain on at the door, because it's that type of show. It's not just a fluff and candy version of Star Wars. This is possibly an adult version. And I'm quite liking Star Wars when it gives us something to think about. That's why I've warmed to the prequels in recent years. So whilst we don't need to really understand everything verbatim, we get the essence of everyone's desperation and what they're going through here, and the reasons why we have to do whatever it takes to overcome tyranny. So we're getting little hints that people are mobilising, like Saw Gerrera, and obviously he's got his own crew, and obviously Andor himself and all his crew as well. Obviously there's going to be turncoats and double crossers. That's partly where the saying the fog of war comes in, because nothing is ever clear. I think as long as we can keep that in mind, we can enjoy this show. I think what it is really is that I think we could have got to the point a lot sooner, in at least 4, maybe 5 episodes less. I know this is a slow burn, and it's probably intended to be. After all, we've got another season. We got to the point with Kenobi, which I recall was only 6 episodes. And I love that show. I did review that show on this channel earlier. I did review each episode in turn rather than the season overall like I've done with Andor here. And I just wanted to give an overall look at Andor because I think it's probably more appropriate to just see the bigger picture. Overall, it is a good show. It's really, really good. Imagine if someone like C-3PO or Jar Jar Binks was in this show. It just wouldn't fit, would it? So I'm glad it was as serious as it is. Also, an expensive looking show. It all looks real, kind of mirrors what we saw in Rogue One for the most part. A lot of the scenes there and here in Andor look like all that footage we see in Iraq with all the troops. Straight away we get to see how serious the situation is. We possibly didn't get that too often with Kenobi. I just felt with the lack of lighting and the set-bound look of the show, it possibly looked a little bit smaller and more intimate than it should have been. Here it does look more expansive. And that can also be my critique of the show as well, which is minor in that it is so expansive that it took a lot longer to get to the point of the story when it could have been accomplished much sooner and clearer. And also some of the earlier episodes where we did lose a few viewers there, all that stuff in the forest, I think it looked a little bit like Robin Hood to me, and I did find it a little bit boring. If you're like me and you did persevere with it and maybe let it gloss over you, I guess, if you're sort of following, but in a way you are and you aren't. If you go along with it, I think we really got there around episode 6 and 7 where it started to get really good and the pace started to pick up. I think we've got a few surprises left to come in Series 2 that we didn't cover here. I've got a sneaky feeling, and now this is just for me and you, I think this is just a theory. I don't think his mum's dead. I think she's possibly faking to create an uprising. And I think Luthen is possibly a former Sith, not a former Jedi. I think he's a former Sith, wanted to redeem himself. I think that's where we're going with Luthen. Can we forgive someone that has done horrible things, which includes murdering people? Can that person ever be forgiven? We're being told that Andor has done horrible things to get where he needs to be, to overthrow the Empire. We covered those aspects in Rogue One very early on in that film, so we know he's got a dark past, and no doubt there'll be more to come in Season 2. So, there's loosely my thoughts overall on Andor, and I'll give it a 4 stars. What we're going to get is a very good Series 2. This is the setup. I think we're past all the exposition. I think Series 2 should be more like Rogue One and the original trilogy, hopefully. And isn't this what we wanted Disney to do? We didn't really want certain stories that they chose to cover in the sequels. Anything more told that sets up Star Wars as we know and love is only a good thing in my book. So, did you enjoy Andor like I did? Did you kind of fade away at certain points and then get drawn back into the show? I can tell you I did, and I think it ended where it should have ended, with a great cliffhanger of what's to come in Series 2. So, thanks for joining me, and be sure to join me again. I like to talk movies and TV often, so subscribe to my channel and that old chorus you always get told. It was good talking to you. All the best. Take care.